On today's episode of Steel Noise, I sit down with Neal Cameron, aka the Chameleon. Neal currently lives on the south coast of New South Wales, but earlier years he spent his time in Sydney. While living in Sydney, he ran a surf shop, worked as a bouncer at bars in King's Cross and other parts of Sydney, and spent much of his time in the ocean and practicing martial arts. Now, the thing that intrigues me the most about Neal is he is a mad scientist. He excels in the fine art of working with fiberglass, and this eventually has grown into a love for carbon fiber. The man's ability to create and experiment has led to him conjuring up some of the most extraordinary creations I've ever seen. Anyway, I'm going to stop blabbering on here, and I'm going to get the man on here himself to explain more about some of the incredible things he's done throughout his lifetime. So without further ado, let me introduce you to the Chameleon himself, Neal Cameron. Hey, Nealo.
How are you doing?
Good, mate. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you, Jake. Thank you for having me.
Oh, stoked to have you, mate. Can I entice you in a
I think we could probably do a little bit of social lubricant.
Glass of Pinot Noir.
Lovely.
Yeah. Anyway, thanks for coming on, mate.
Rene Pogel, as we used to call it when we were young fellas.
What's that mean?
Well, if you spell it backwards.
Rene Pogel.
Leg opener.
There you go. That's not too generous for you, is it?
May I pour you a little glass of Rene Pogel?
Rene Pogel. There you go.
Thank you.
Well, cheers, mate. Thanks very much. Let me pop this down so I don't spill it on the carpet.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Away we go.
Great to have you on here, mate.
Thank you.
Stoked. Absolutely stoked to get you on here. So pretty much to start us off, give us a bit of an intro of yourself, where you're from, full name.
Oh, yeah,
like that.
Neal Cameron. Yes, grew up in Maroubra.
Yep.
In the Housing Commission at the North End.
Kenzo.
No, Maroubra Beach.
Okay.
Yes. There was sort of two big areas of Housing Commission in Maroubra Beach, which was kind of a lower social demographic than the other beaches. And you had the middle of the beach, there was a sort of a big Housing Commission area there where all the bra boys came from, and it was a bit of a dog-eat-dog down there. But we were up the north end, we were living with a whole bunch of old people in these units.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like survival of the quietest rather than survival of the fittest.
Survival of the roughest down the south end.
The
north end.
Yeah, it was really cool. It was a great place to live.
Yeah, right. And did you spend most of your time, like your kind of earlier days, in Sydney? Are you from Sydney originally as a child, or?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, cool.
Always lived in Sydney, and mostly in the eastern suburbs.
Yep. And you did schooling there and all that?
Yep.
Yeah, cool. And so like your younger days, you did schooling. Did you always have a love for the ocean, a love for the sea? Was that something you developed, or?
I think it was something that I developed because if you live right across from it, you can't help by getting absorbed by its moods. You look out the window and there it was, and every day you go down, you get the school bus and everyone would meet down on the pedestrian crossing right opposite the beach, and you'd be checking the waves, and sooner or later you got into surfing.
Yeah. How old do you reckon you were when you got into... So you were into kneeboarding, is that right?
No, I originally started on a surfboard.
On a surfboard, yep.
But I had just zero ability at it.
Okay.
And, kneeboarding was becoming popular, and it was seen as, I guess, an easier way.
Yeah. What year was this?
In reality, it probably wasn't.
Yeah.
What year? Gosh.
Testing you.
Don't know. I'm not good with years and dates.
It's all right. Doesn't matter.
No, it all sort of blends into
Back
a
then.
lifetime. Back then, yes, that's
That'll
it.
do.
That's
Let's run with that.
Yeah, we'll talk about back then.
I like that. And so just we'll touch briefly on, I did a bit of research. You were running surf shops in your younger days, correct?
I started working for a mate of mine who wanted to open up a kneeboard shop,
right?
Because kneeboards were really popular.
That was the thing.
And I sort of thought, gee, Wayne, I don't know that we should go entirely kneeboard, so we'll order a couple of surfboards and we'll put them in the window before we open up. So while he was setting up the shop, I did a little window display, and I bought some boards from the Byrne brothers in Wollongong, I think it was. Might have been a Larry Bertelman or something like that. Anyway, before we'd officially opened, we'd sold like about 10 boards out of the front window.
Wow.
And had not one kneeboard.
Yeah.
So it kind of went the other way, and it became
a surf shop.
Really successful traditional surf shop, yeah. But we were importing's probably not the word, but bringing in from interstate boards, which no one was really doing.
Right.
If you wanted to buy a surfboard, you either went to Cronulla or you went to the north side to buy a board.
Yeah.
So we were bringing them from Wollongong, Queensland, and all over the place. Yep.
Yep. And
and saw a lot of big brands start up, which was really exciting looking back at it.
Yeah, for sure. They were. I guess that was the golden years.
Aloha being one of them, you know.
Aloha surfboards, yeah. Yeah. Hot Butted and stuff. Was that era?
No, Terry was already well and truly up and
he
going.
was really.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. And interesting. So like, I saw a little thing. During your time of running the surf shop, you had I read something about the roller girls. So you had girls on roller skates.
Yeah, that was later when I had my own shop. So it was probably about 10 years later. But we moved the shop down the road, and they used to have these surf carnival events at Coogee. Like Coogee's not known for waves, but they'd have a surf carnival there, and the place would just pack out.
Yeah.
So in order to maximise the crowd, we used to get these little like $5 notes printed up, and on one side it looked like a $5 bill, and on the other side it would say $5 off a bikini or a pair of board shorts.
Right.
And I'd get some of the girls who worked for me to go and hand them out. Anyway, one of the girls, Karen, who was a model for Vivian's, I think,
yeah,
she said, "Oh, I'll put my roller skates on, I'll go and hand them out,
yeah,
and I'll bring my friend Helen down." So they came down and zoomed around on their roller skates, and by about 1 o'clock we had to say stop. There was so many people trying to get into the shop.
Sold out.
It was just nuts, you know.
Wow.
So each time there was an event on, I used to do that.
Yeah.
And we made some little outfits up for them.
Yeah.
And then the big hotel across the road was Terry Page's hotel, which was Selena's, where all the big bands used to play.
Right.
And he said, "Oh, who are these girls that are working for?" "Oh, well, can they do something for us?" So they started doing their bottle shops and all of that. And within about, 18 months, they were working for Coca-Cola and Channel 10 and
wow,
doing the City to Surf for Sun Herald, and they became like little mini sort of celebrities and
little
did TV stuff. And yeah.
Wow,
and there was
unreal.
a group of girls in Newcastle and Wollongong and Sydney, and it turned into a great little business.
Really started something off there, didn't you?
Yeah, and
roller marketing.
Yeah, well, Promo Skate it was called.
Promo Skate. Oh,
Promo Skate, yeah.
Was that actually the official name?
Yep.
Oh, unreal, yeah, sweet.
And they were all insured and workers' comped, although we never had an accident.
Oh, so good.
And they were insured as circus performers.
Wow.
Because my insurance guy managed to find the lowest possible rate for me to insure them.
Yep.
And it was circus performers, because apparently they have a very low rate of injury.
Wow. Interesting.
So
I guess is circus, would it be the lowest rate of injury because they're so highly trained and
so careful?
And so careful, yeah. Everything's so calculated, I guess, huh?
Yeah. It's
wow,
not
interesting.
Not like hitting your thumb with a hammer and having a week off.
Yeah, cool.
You break your bones, you know.
Yeah. So, people have often described you, when I talk to people about Neal Cameron, they've often described you as living a pretty alternative lifestyle. What are your thoughts on that statement?
Well, I guess it's not alternate now. It probably was when I started it.
Yeah.
But I've always, tended to live where I worked. After the stock market crash and the whole surfing industry retail went down the hole, I just got into doing surfboard repairs and had a really big business. Like I was the biggest in the eastern suburbs, and we did all Bondi, Maroubra, did everybody. And a lot of the time I'd just go and rent an old house, and you'd have like a room to sleep in, and the rest of it was basically a factory.
Yeah.
And lived like that for a long time. Just didn't really care. It was just you worked and you surfed and you went out and you partied and went night clubbing
and you lived.
It was just awesome.
Yeah.
And then when I got into the bus, that was about 26 years ago. My friends were a little concerned. They've told me now, but that I was losing my marbles. What are you doing?
Mad
I was living up on the rifle range at South Maroubra.
Yeah. In
like hundreds of acres of just vacant land, except when they go shooting on the weekends.
Yeah.
And people come around and say, "Oh, so I bring my board up here to get repaired." Yeah. And they'd be working away, and suddenly someone would say, "Where's the electricity coming from?" And you kind of go, "Oh, on the roof." Huh? Because I had the sanding bay and everything running and all the lights and the whole lot all off solar. Off the roof, off the bus, and the people were fascinated. Like, it was a bit unusual.
That was pretty left of field back then,
Back then, yeah.
Yeah, wow. Unreal. And you spent how long living on that rifle range?
On the rifle range, probably about 4 years, it was an awesome place to live, except everything rusted.
Yeah, right on the water there, right?
Right on the water.
Is that the rifle range at South Maroubra?
South Maroubra.
Yeah, I know the one. Yeah.
Yeah,
Cool.
so I lived there. And it was great. You could tear around on the grass and the buggies, and
Yeah.
when it was raining, which was heaps of fun. There was about 60 horses up there that had
Right.
come over and say hi, and
Oh, well, that's unreal, eh?
it was a really cool place to live. You go out in the city, go to a big party, a really nice event, and then come back there and open up the gate, and you were like hundreds of acres, and you were the only one there.
It's like
It was just great.
property. It's like a country
Yeah.
lifestyle in the city.
Yeah, you're like 15, 20 minutes away from King's Cross,
Wow.
and you're like you're only person around for, square kilometres.
Yeah. On that note, what was did you do some time in the city and the King's Cross back in like the 80s sort of
Oh,
those eras, party-wise?
Oh my gosh, yeah.
What was that like?
Well, it was exciting in those days because if there was nothing on television, you just put on a clean shirt and go out.
Yeah.
There was always something happening.
Yeah.
The city life was unbelievable back in the 80s and 90s.
It would have been pretty lawless, right? King's Cross back then, or was it?
Yeah, the cross was always a balance of it's kind of like organised chaos, and if you knew who was who in the zoo and minded your own business, you never have a problem.
Yeah. Because I just from my experience going when I was 18 before the lockout laws, I just remember just showing up to the place and being like, my goodness, I cannot believe somewhere like this even exists or even thrives in this country. Like I just wouldn't think that this would be legal or possible, and everyone's sort of just coexisting in this chaotic just mess, but everything sort of just seemed to function. Everything just still, it didn't implode,
Yeah.
And I was just blown away by it. I couldn't believe that was
It
a
does.
thing.
I worked up there in security for quite a few years, and the thing that sort of struck me was that the balance of the chaos and the power structure,
Yeah.
and how much the police were involved in that power structure,
Right.
which is probably somewhere I shouldn't go. But that's some of the things
Of
I saw
course.
there. I was like, whoa, I can't believe that's going on. But
Yeah.
that's what goes on. That's how it works. Okay.
I mean, and that's all pretty out in the media and in the public now. Anyway, even just watching those the underbellies, the Golden Mile and stuff, it talks about the police's involvement in the gangs and the whole underworld of the cross. So
Well, I remember when that series came out, and I was talking to some friends who I'd worked with up there, and I said, "Oh, what do you think about this Underbelly series?" And we were talking, "Oh, yeah, this was good, and this was good, and they depicted blah blah really well." But everyone would then stop, pause, and say, "But they really couldn't put on TV what was really going on because nobody would believe it."
yeah, I guess that's how it is.
Yeah, some of the things that went on were just, wow, like that's just wild.
What do you reckon were some of the wildest parties you attended when you were younger? Just in kind of that era of Sydney. I know that was the golden years.
Well, they used to have garage parties and factory parties and things like that someone would put on, and you'd find out where it was, and everyone would go along.
Yeah.
They usually have a theme, and it was, and of course there was no insurances, no security, none of those things, and everything used to just run really smoothly.
Yeah.
And everyone was happy. In the 80s and 90s, there was no want.
Yeah.
Everybody had
What they needed.
$20 or $50 in your pocket, which you could go everywhere on that night.
Right.
It didn't matter what you did in regard to a business, it just seemed to go great
Yeah.
because that was the way it was. Everything was just boom, boom, boom.
Yeah.
And when it's like that, everybody gets on.
Everyone gets on because
It's
no
just-
one's trying to overpower each other.
No, and there's no, you didn't turn on the TV and see all this, murder and mayhem from overseas every night of the week.
Yeah.
It wasn't in your consciousness.
Yeah.
It was all about, where am I going to go? Who am I going to have sex with tonight?
Yeah.
And where are we going surfing in the next couple of days?
It's pretty simple living
It
right
was
there.
very simple, but it was great.
Sad that that's now a thing of the past. There's just too much. Everything's too much in your face, right? Everything.
Look, I think, two things I don't like in life. I don't like insurance companies because they're driven by shareholders. So, the more mayhem they can appear to cause, you need a policy for that. It's and that's what's happened to the music, to festivals, is they've been crushed by the insurance issues.
Yeah.
They just price you out of it.
Yeah.
It's like real estate agents. It's not in their interest to have prices go down
Oh,
because
yeah.
they work on a percentage.
No. So
So,
driving force to keep it going.
yeah, to keep it going up. And at some point it just maxes out, and this is what the situation we've got now.
Yeah. Yeah. Fully.
Well, that's my view anyway.
Yeah. And just to touch on again, like you mentioned before, you were working security. How did that come about? Was that something you always looked to do for a job, or like
No, that was I was doing martial arts, and I can't remember how.
What form of martial arts?
Japanese, like
Okay.
a Wadaru, which was a cross between Okinawan karate and jiu-jitsu.
Right.
It's kind of a blend of the two.
Is it more like stand-up combat, or you go into the ground and?
Oh, well, the difference, the jiu-jitsu is a lot of groundwork now, and it's become a real art. But we were always taught, well, you put people on the ground, you don't go to the ground.
Yeah, you're doing your best to stay up.
You
put
stay
them
up.
there.
They go down. You stay up.
Yeah.
So it was a kind of slightly different philosophy.
Yeah.
And somehow somebody came down and watched us train one day and said, "Oh, look, I've got opening a restaurant in the next couple of weeks. There's a big celebrity party. Would you guys come along and do the door?"
Yeah.
So my friend John and I said, "Yeah, we'll do that." And we went along and we opened up this restaurant, and it was called Rude Food. And all the food was in the shapes of boobs and bums and all that sort of stuff. And they had all the TV people and all these came along, and it was a fantastic night.
Yeah.
And everything went really well. And some other fellow who was leaving at the end of the night said, "Oh, you guys did a really good job. Would you come along and do this other thing for me?"
Yeah.
And we ended up, we did the National Panasonic Open, which was the big golf tournament.
Right.
And then he ripped us off.
Yeah.
And it took us 6 months to find him. And irony was he had an office in the police building in, what's the road that runs down the side of College Street.
Right.
He had an office in there. Anyway, we caught up with him and we marched him down to the local Commonwealth Bank in Oxford Street, and he drew out an extra $16,000 that he owed us,
Yeah.
which was very kind of him.
That's very kind.
And then I notified the people who he'd subcontracted to and said, "Well, you
He's a
paid
crook.
all this money. He's a crook. We carried out. Nothing went wrong, which was a miracle because he charged for all these extra guys that weren't there."
Yeah.
And they said, "Well, thanks for being honest. Would you like the contract?"
Sweet.
And so for the next 6 or 8 years, we had the contract for
For all the golf tournaments.
all the golf tournaments. And then somebody came along and said, "Oh, you guys are doing a good job. Would you like to go and do all the city to surfs?" And we did that, and it just got bigger and bigger.
So it
and
just
bigger.
fell into your lap, really. It
Just
wasn't
kinda-
something that you pursued or looked for a career in.
No, it was just a matter of go in there and do the best you can. And,
Wow, that's crazy.
and consider what I call the what-if factor. And if you can consider the what-if factor in life, then you are prepared for most things.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whether it's jumping off rocks, surfing, or doing a job like that.
Yeah, exactly. And did you have some heavy moments? Have you got some crazy stories from security,
Not
or was
really.
it always pretty civil? You didn't have to get yourself into
Oh,
too
there's
much of a
bit
tangle.
little bit of rough and tumble from time to time, but very
course.
rare.
Yeah, interesting.
It's all about how well you can talk people
How well
down.
you can talk
and-
people down, exactly. Yeah.
And you can sometimes, in most cases, talk down the most aggressive person. But even like when you walk in somewhere and there's a bar and there's all these people on the floor and there's gorillas there ready for the next person, and he sees the doorman come in and goes, "Well, you're next."
Yeah.
And he'd sort of go, "Well, geez, mate, they must have pissed you off. What happened there?"
Yeah.
And,
Kind of take their side for a
and it
moment.
just flicks the switch.
Yeah. Get on their
And
level.
then go, and get on that level and say, "Well, you wouldn't believe it. I've been asked to come in here and throw you out, and that's not happening because look what you've done to them."
Yeah, I don't want that done to me.
Have a bit of a laugh,
Yeah. Yeah, well, look, I ain't grabbing you, buddy, because I don't want to
Yeah.
end up like that. But how can we work something out here?
And everywhere that I
Yeah.
worked, with the management, whenever I worked there, I always had a bar account
Yeah.
that was not questioned.
Dedicated to the roughies that you want to talk down.
Exactly.
That's unreal.
Yeah.
That's a good tactic. I like that.
Yeah, and I'd use it often.
Smart man, Neil.
if they had left and behaved themselves, then I'd say, "Well, leave it a couple of weeks, come back and see me," and then I'd take them and I'd get them a drink and say, "Look, thanks for not making it any harder than you needed to." And then the next time there's a problem in the bar, you got somebody else on side.
There you go.
So,
Brains over broad, brother.
Yeah, so that's how I got around it.
Yeah. I'm hearing you. Like
And
your
had
style.
a big dog at one stage too, which used to help.
A big dog.
Yeah.
What kind of dog?
She was a Doberman Shepherd cross.
Holy smell.
And the big one was a Doberman Dane.
Wow.
Yeah, she was the best one.
And did that come and do security with you? What's sat
Yep.
up the front?
Yep.
Just fucking.
Yep, I used to get a lot of jobs because of the dog.
Wow. That'd shut her up pretty
Really
quick.
really smart dog, didn't make mistakes.
Wow. Unreal.
Knew when to come out of the corner and eyeball people and,
Yeah. Wow, cool.
he
Did the
gives-
dog live in the bus with you?
Yeah,
Yeah, sweet.
yeah. Yeah, so I've had some great dogs.
Yeah.
So, I worked with a really interesting, funny bunch of guys in King's Cross. And
Yeah, I
some
bet.
of the things that went on, you just think, wow, I can't believe that was going on. But it was great. Had some good parties, lots of good celebrity parties and things like that.
But did you go to some pretty crazy, prestigious parties or?
Yeah, yeah. And one of the funniest jobs we had was on the Gulf, and we had to go down to Canberra. And the people that were organising the event said, could you guys go down 2 weeks early? I thought, 2 weeks early?
What the hell's that?
The event
for?
only goes for 4 days.
Yeah.
I said, well, yeah, we'll go for 2 weeks. And they said, you only need to do about 3 hours a day. So we can do that. We're going to charge you for 24 hours and you have to accommodate us. Not a problem. Okay, so off we go. We get down to Canberra. And we turn up at Royal Sydney Golf Club at about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Royal Canberra at about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And this limo pulls up. Another van, dog squad van, pulls up. We thought, what's going on here? The dog squad guy gets out and introduces himself, and Bob Hawke who's the Prime Minister at the time, gets out of the limo and pulls his golf clubs out of the boot.
Oh, wow.
And all we had to do was walk him around the golf course.
Yeah.
And make sure there was no one hiding in the bushes.
Make sure no one's going to try and take him out. Yeah. He was a good man, Bob Hawke.
He was great. And that was our job for...
Love the beer.
For 2 weeks.
Yeah, right.
And we didn't talk to him. I just said to my mate John, I said, well, I figure if he's come to the golf course, because he wants to play with Greg Norman, he wants to get practiced, we'll just leave him alone. Not even going to talk to the guy.
Yeah.
So we'd give him the nod, and Bob would give us a nod, and off we go for our walk, and same routine. Anyway, at the end of the tournament, on the final day, when they were all starting to leave, and Hawkey's limo goes out up the driveway, and it's got the tinted windows, we couldn't see anything. Anyway, the car stops in the driveway, and the chauffeur gets out and opens up the door, and Bob gets out and comes down and shakes our hands. Thanks, fellas.
Good on you, boys.
I thought that was cool.
Yeah. He was a legend, eh?
Yeah.
Best Prime Minister ever.
Yeah. So it's funny how those jobs, just one thing falls into another. If you give a little bit more than you're asked to do, I think you'll always be sought after.
Exactly. Always find yourself on your feet.
Yeah, and expect nothing in return for the extra that you do.
Yeah. Do for people without your hand out.
Yep.
It's an important legacy to live by, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it worked in those days.
Yeah. Well, all right, let's talk about the elephant in the room here. You're the mad scientist. Everyone knows it. That's your status. The mad scientist. You can create, discover. Yeah, well, everything.
I sort of always, I don't know, brain works differently. Everyone's brain works differently, but I'd always, you get some new product or something that you've just bought, think, well, I could make that better, or where can I get that? So I always thought, well, if I can't buy it, I'll make it.
Yeah. And
or find a way to do it,
You've created, I mean, from as long as I've known you and the things I've seen you create, you've made all sorts of things, but you had a very, very intricate fascination in fiberglass. So talk us
through that of course came from ding repairs.
Yeah, of course.
And working with my mentor Peter Berry, who was an amazing surfer and built incredible things and would think outside the box. So he made me realise that it was okay to think outside of the box.
Yeah.
That was the biggest influence of meeting him and working with him, surfing with him, was it was okay to be different.
It was okay to be.
School, of course, was always trying to box you into something.
And
so that was great. So he kind of unchained my brain, and whenever I was confronted with a problem, I'd find a way to build something.
Yeah. And with fiberglass, what would you say your most strange creation from that you've made out of fiberglass?
Probably that ball gown that's in Swarovski Crystals Museum.
Yeah, I've done a little bit of research on that. Can you tell me a bit about this? What's going on there?
That was I started when carbon fibre first became available. I had a job for about 18 months to build a prototype for a sports car that these people wanted to make in Australia.
Right.
So we made a giant plug, a big model. So in those days,
a mold. Do you mean a plug? What's
the plug is the model that then you make the mold from.
Okay, right.
So people sort of think, oh, it's just made out of fiberglass and you just make it out of a mould.
Yeah.
But they don't stop and think where the mould comes from.
Yeah.
This is the fabulous thing about the new technologies with 3D printing. They can actually 3D print the mould. You don't need to print the article anymore to make the mould from.
Mm-hmm.
So model makers who used to be, well, you know, clay sculpting cars and all that sort of stuff, their jobs are gone.
Right.
They're not required anymore.
Yeah.
But yeah, you had to build that. So where was I going with that? Oh yes. Anyway, it was made they wanted to make it out of this new material, carbon fibre.
Yeah.
This black stuff. I thought this looks great. You know. Anyway, months later when we're building the car out of the mould, and I thought this stuff looks so cool. You know, the way the light catches it. And I thought, I wonder what else you could make out of it. And if you could plasticize it, you could make, you know, belts or wallets or whatever. And so I went and spoke to the guys at...
Sorry, by plasticize, do you mean to make it malleable?
Yeah, malleable's the perfect word.
Yeah.
I spoke to the guys at a local chemical factory, which was Newplex in Botany.
Yeah.
And they formulated a flexible resin.
Right.
Which I think they used to make it for carbog or something like that.
Okay.
Because carbog's slightly flexible. And so we started laminating that into carbon to make it malleable. And so we made some belts and wallets, and then I sort of thought, I wonder if you could make a bikini out of it, you know. So I moulded a friend of mine, and we made bikinis. And
by moulded a friend of mine, like
just physically moulded her. Yeah, I've got some really tolerant female friends.
It must be, yeah.
I just want to cover you in silicone and mould you. Would you be okay with that? Okay,
sure.
Sure. It smells. It's hot.
Oh, fully, it would have been hot. Oh shit. So then you've made a bikini, but you were saying this dress, the crystal dress.
So because we made a corset and a few other things. And it's a very clever friend of mine, Lisa's her name. She's a costumer.
Right.
And she kind of entertained some of my wacky ideas, and we made a couple of outfits which won a prize actually in the movie's production book, which was kind of like the telephone book of movie people.
Right.
So we won this costume award.
Awesome.
And so I'll make a corset. Let's make an evening gown. So I scribble a thing on a piece of paper, and she just makes it magical. And it was in a fashion parade, and another girl designer said, "Oh, that corset, that thing was amazing. Will you do something with me? I'm doing something for Swarovski."
Yeah.
So we made that up and made the corset and a few other bits, and it's in the museum. It was in their catalogue. I've got pictures of it in their catalogue.
Right. And so Swarovski, like, I'm not familiar.
That's they're the biggest crystal company in the world, like Swarovski Crystal.
So give us a bit of just like a visual.
It's a corset, but it has the breasts and the stomach muscles are already in it.
Right. Okay, so
that's what's interesting about it. So a woman can be completely flat chested,
but she looks like she's got nice
But we can make something
tees.
like she's got everything rocking.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe I need to throw that on.
Yeah.
Put me gym shirt over and roll into the gym with that on.
I did do one for Mardi Gras for a guy. Yeah.
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 Yeah. Okay. And so that was carbon fiber, did you say?
Carbon fibre, and then we got bored with that and did fiberglass ones, which you can print with a process, they call it aqua dipping,
right?
Which you can see online now quite a bit. But another associate of mine was one of the early developers of that. He used to make all the dashboards for Toyota and Mercedes. Those beautiful wooden dashboards are actually ink. They're not timber.
Right.
And so we printed some bikinis like that, and it was just a whole new of like, wow.
Yeah. Is that
I've still got a lot of them, and I need to sell them if anybody's interested.
Yeah, maybe I'll get one.
You never know.
Yeah. So like that stuff on the side of your car, is that timber paneling, or is that this stuff you're talking about?
No, that's just enamel paint.
Right. Okay.
That's just paint with a rubber block and a brush.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Because I've always thought it was some sort of timber laminate or something.
Nothing high tech about that.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that
was the result of a friend of mine saying, "I've never seen you drive a boring car."
And you're like, oh crap, I've got a boring one here.
I'll do something about that. I've had zebra striped cars and all sorts of things, but I thought, no, I better do something.
Better throw a bit of
the Woody,
bit of spice on there.
Yeah, I had a Woody in Valiant. So I did a Woody Commodore.
Yeah, right. Interesting. All right, so like, I've put down a bit of a list of stuff that I know that you've created. You can add to it. So there's the carbon fiber lingerie, like the bras and like the bikinis and stuff. The crystal gown that we just spoke about. You actually made me a guitar, which is out there.
Oh yes. Yeah, that was That was the code project.
Yeah, and that is...
So what can I make carbon fibre guitars? And so, yeah.
And that is insane. The thing sounds beautiful. It's light as a feather. It's quite small. That's amazing. Okay, so you got the bus, the dune buggy.
Oh, the Catamacar.
What's that?
I just sold that to a friend of mine. I was delighted. He's a real character. Yeah, that was a beach buggy body that I had sitting around, and I wanted to do something with it. So I was looking for some Hobie Cat hulls, but I ended up finding a little twin hull rowboat skiff thing on the side of the road down in Ulladulla.
Right.
So I took that home. We cut it in half. Went up to Mark Ravage's place, and we cut it in half. Put about 18 inches in the middle of it, and sat the beach buggy body on it.
Wow.
And made a boat out of it. Called it the Catamacar.
So you sit.
Goes great.
How does it operate?
It's got an outboard.
Yeah, it's got an outboard, and you steer it like a vehicle.
Car. Yeah.
Yeah. So like
it's got a windscreen like a car, and it's got headlights and all that sort of stuff in it.
No
It's a really cool thing.
What?
So when I was living on Lake Conjola, I had it on the property down there, so I could just buzz around the lake. It was really, really fun.
Wow.
The other wacky thing, we ended up a job for Virgin Airlines. A bloke got the job to build a crew trainer. So it's basically an aeroplane that fills up with smoke,
right? And
the crew can practice their emergency procedures.
Okay,
the lights come on the floor, and they kick out the doors, and they do all that stuff.
Yep.
So Virgin brought over and put onto a block of land where I had the bus parked at one stage.
Yeah.
A Boeing 737. I think they must have brought it over on a ship.
Like an actual full-size plane.
Full-size plane.
Holy shit.
So they then cut it off behind the front doors.
Yep.
And they cut it off where the wings are. So what you ended up with was a plane which had the nose, the tail, and the wings.
Right.
And butted it all together.
Oh, yeah, and just compressed it.
So it's like a stumpy.
So you don't have the whole cabin.
That's right. So it had about, 15 rows, 15 rows of seats, maybe 18 rows of seats.
Right.
Anyway, the guy who had the job stuffed it up.
Yeah.
And when they pulled it apart, they pulled out all the internal panels, all those panels on the side of fiberglass.
Mm-hmm.
And they took all of those out, and they look identical, but they're not. There's very, very small differences between the front and the rear of the plane. And the plane is designed to be disassembled in what they call a C-check.
Okay.
And they do that about every, X amount of flying hours. They pull the seats out because they're all on those tracks on the floor.
Yep.
All the seats come out. All the roof panels and the boxes over the top, they all unclip. And the side panels all unclip. And then they do a frame inspection.
Wow.
To make sure there's no stress marks.
Looking for stress marks and corrosion? Is that a thing?
Yes. Yeah. All of that.
Yeah.
And then they put it all back together, and it all goes back together in exact order.
Right.
Like a big jigsaw puzzle.
Wow.
But the panels are slightly different. Anyway, they just got a skip bin and threw all the panels they thought they didn't need into the skip bin. And when they put the plane back together, they used a centre bit. They turned it around the wrong way. And there's a slight taper on the aircraft that your eye doesn't pick up.
Okay.
So he kind of discovered that he'd messed it all up and took $18,000 worth of wages, which I think was the week's wages for all the engineers and welders and everyone he had on site, and got on a plane in New Zealand and pissed off.
And bounced.
And did the bolt.
Fuck.
Just left it.
Shit.
So it was in a complete state of disarray. I can show you some pictures of it.
Yeah, I'd like to see that.
And I'd done a little bit on it, making some overwing doors, and there was a carpenter there who I became really good mates with, and one aircraft engineer, and the fella from Virgin came over and sort of said, well, his job was on the line. Peter Little was his name. And he was very distressed, of course, because it was his baby, and
his project.
He had to solve it.
Yeah.
So he said, well, can you guys organise it and finish it? We said, well, we haven't been paid. And he said, well, whatever you need as an hourly rate to make up what you've lost, charge me that. We need it done by this date. It was like one of those TV shows where everything's got a time frame.
Block.
It's just like, oh, God, I hate those programs. Like, that's just boring. It's had a time limit, and it did.
Yeah. Had
to be presented at Virgin or whatever it was. So we got in there and we turned it into an aeroplane. But I remember the night before, it must have been about 3 o'clock in the morning, we're trying to get this thing together.
Fuck.
And because he put the middle part of the plane around the wrong way. The seats wouldn't slot into the tracks. So we've got these big steel tech screws. We're just
fucking
into the floor.
bang them in, boom,
Bang
boom.
them in, but just make it look right. You know?
Holy shit.
Wow. It's just like one of those shows. Oh, my God. But it did turn out really cool, I must admit. And so far as I know, that's Virgin's crew trainer.
Still? Wow.
Yep.
No way.
Yep.
Crazy.
Yeah, because they were using Qantas's one for a long time, but then they got their own.
Right.
And it's in a big warehouse out at Botany still, I believe.
Wow. And when did you build this?
Just before I left Sydney, I suppose. When was that? So it would have been, it's probably about 14 years ago.
Right. Jeez, it's still going.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they'll keep it. I'll use it.
Forever.
It looked treat.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, we just paint rolled the whole. Oh, and I'll tell you something that I shouldn't say, but
yeah, I like this is the nitty gritty. I like this. Yeah.
So there's a very, very clever graffiti artist in Maroubra, one of the lads, one of the boys.
Yep.
And his graffiti was his tag was this snail.
Right.
And it's even on the side of the highway when you go through. It's at the bottom of Stony Hill. There's a snail on a silo, I think, out there somewhere.
I've seen a snail somewhere recently.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he had this happy snail anyway.
At Milton here, you mean? Down Stony Hill?
Yeah,
okay, I'm going to look for it.
Yeah, it's quite iconic, and it'd be on trains and it would be all over the place, this happy snail. Yeah. And I think people kind of liked it because it wasn't offensive graffiti. It was always kind of cool.
Yeah.
Anyway, I said, "Oh, Luke," I said, "have you ever tagged an aeroplane?" He said, No. So at this point, all our wages had gone, and I hadn't made any arrangement to fix this aeroplane.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, I might just turn a blind eye if the plane gets a coat of graffiti on it, you know?
Yeah. So, no way.
Because one side of it was against a wall and you couldn't see.
Yeah.
And they'd rolled white paint onto it, you see.
Right.
So anyway, I've gone out for the night wherever it was, and I come out in the morning and I walk around and I sort of made some suggestions what he might do. You know, on the side of the Virgin aircraft, they always have the girl, and if you look at any Virgin aeroplane, it's called the Miss whatever it is.
Oh, sort of, yeah.
And it's got this beautiful girl or whatever it is on the side of it.
Yeah.
Up near the pilot's
area.
I
do know what you mean.
Yeah.
Up the front of it. Yeah.
Up the front.
I do know what you mean, yeah.
So he's got this snail, and the whole snail, the back of it's all on fire, and the flames are running down the plane, and it says, "Burn, baby, burn."
Oh my God. So he's really hammed it up.
Oh, it was awesome. And I remember saying to Pete, I said, "Pete," I said, "I know things aren't good at the moment, but the graffiti artists have been in." He's like, "Oh no." I said, "You better come and have a look." So he bolts out from Virgin and he looks at it, and it's all white. I said, "Come around the other side," and I mean, you could see the colour drain out of his face, and then he started to laugh. I thought it was fantastic.
Oh, it's pretty good.
I said, "Don't worry, we can just paint over it."
Well, one, you can paint over it. Two, like you said, you're not going to see that. So.
You're not going to see it. So it was
that's so good.
Yeah.
That's unreal.
I don't know if he ever took a picture of it, but I'm sure he would never own up to it. But
yeah,
that was what we did. I was angry at that point, but I thought we'll have a bit of fun with it.
Yeah, why not? Oh, well, we can sign the disclaimer at the start. Anything on this podcast...
anything we don't want to talk about? Yeah.
Anything on this podcast is not deemed to be factual. And
that's right, it's for entertainment purposes
purely
only.
For entertainment purposes. Yes. So what we just said is a complete load of hogwash, so it doesn't matter.
That's right.
Yeah, tell us a bit about
my life's been full of stuff like that.
Funny
little things that happen, and you just kind of, how did this happen, you know?
Oh, I know. I mean, from the times that we've had been out watching bands and stuff, and I always have this weird, I'm always drawn to the chameleon. I see him over there just lurking. I'm going to go and see the chameleon. What do you got for me, Neil? Let me hear it. Or just even the conversations we've had in the, what would you say, the 10 years of knowing each other? Seems about right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, even in those 10 years, it's just like the things I've learned and the conversations we've had. You're one of those people I'm like, kind of at a part, and I'm like, oh yes, I can go and have a conversation where I'm going to be entertained, I'm going to be stimulated, I'm going to be engaged.
Thank you.
I'm going to Neela. Let's have it.
That's very flattering. I'm glad.
But what else? The June buggy. Tell us about the June buggy.
Oh,
the buggy used to pull up down here at Narrawally up on the
buggies.
median strip.
I always wanted something to. I always had a thing for those things, and I ended up with a mini moke. I couldn't get a beach buggy. I had a really, really fast mini moke, which is just useless off road. The moment you put the front wheels off the tar, they go straight down.
Right.
But I ended up with a sort of modified Volkswagen, and I made a kind of a buggy thing out of that, and then I ended up with a Myers Manx, which is the sort of the Rolls Royce of the original dune buggy.
Right.
Made by a guy called Bruce Myers, who's passed now, but he would have been, I think it was about 94 or something, Bruce, when he passed. But
Right.
he was still...
He was 94, it was in 94?
He was 94.
Right.
And he was still tearing around the sand dunes when he was 90.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Mad Max.
Yeah. He built, and he was an amazing designer and a surfer originally.
Right.
Yeah, we did a little story on him. I'll show it to
Yeah,
you later.
you were telling me about that.
Yeah, very interesting man.
I'm very interested to hear about that. Oh, what else?
Learned a lot about surfboards, and
He did.
yeah,
Well, he taught you.
he was in the really early days of surfing. Yeah,
Right.
and how they used to make boards out of balsa and stuff like that.
What's
and
bolster?
balsa wood?
Oh, balsa wood.
Balsa wood, yeah.
Yep.
And how they used to, after the war, they used to steal the World War II life rafts, which were made out of balsa wood, but it was end grain balsa, and it was male balsa.
What's that mean?
Well, there's male and female. Apparently, the male's all knotty and heavy,
Right.
and female balsa is what they used to make the surfboards out of.
Okay.
So they used to steal the life rafts and make surfboards out of the balsa.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, he's got some great stories. I won't spoil it.
I bet. No, maybe don't. We can save that one for maybe we can do a episode 2, a take 2, and we can talk about
Well,
that
yes. Or you can just look it up on YouTube.
one. Oh, it's on there?
It's on YouTube.
Oh,
Yeah.
sweet. Okay, maybe that's an easier way. Hey, what about you talked before about surfboard fins? I actually have a set of the fins that you've given me to try.
Yeah, I was always into surfboard fins.
Yeah, what's the concept behind that? You explained to me about.
Oh, the warp foil.
Yeah, the warp foils.
Well, the idea is that you can have, and I noticed just on the by and by that Futures have a new fin out. It's a new Vector, which is one of their old designs.
Yep.
Which has the similar sort of thing going on with the tips. So they should be really interesting.
Yeah.
So the concept is basically if you say you take a twin fin with boxes, the cord line of the foil, which is the centre, always points in the direction that the box points.
Yeah.
So with these, the cord line is diagonal. So when you put them in one way, it's slightly towed out.
Yep.
If you swap them over, it's slightly towed in. So you've got two sets of fins in one.
So one was, the ones you gave me was one, using them one way, it was looser, and then the other way was drivier, right?
Yep.
And I had a set and I experimented. And the one was like, and the board I was riding, remember, it was like that 6'4" or something you gave me, and I only rode it in small waves. But I remember getting on and being like, oh yeah, true. And
I was prepared for this.
Oh yes. Give us a look.
So yeah, so they're towed in and it's towed out.
Right. Okay.
And they're normal ones.
You were prepared for this. Wow. Yeah, okay. Because I've always looked at them. I remember looking at them with one of my buddies once, and you're like, wow, the tail, the back of the fin almost faces in, like, as if it's to face one way, but then the front of the fin
faces the other.
Is the opposite.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you can swap them side by side.
So in your understanding, would you say that the when it's towed out, when it's sort of splayed out, that's the looser or the drivier?
Well, you're going to get less drag.
Less drag,
you're not
because you're not pushing against
you're not pushing water.
And then when they're towed in, you'd say
when they're towed in, they tend to push water, but when you put them on a rail, then they're much more loose. They're much more like a rudder.
Okay.
Yeah, much more like a rudder.
There you go.
And
these
tops,
ones are crazy. Give us a little run through these ones.
They were designed on the F-16s.
Right.
They used to be popular in the 80s.
Yeah.
Quite a lot of manufacturers used those fins in thrusters.
Wow.
Yeah, they went through a stage.
So these ones, just for people who are listening and not watching, they're almost like a. Give us a bit of an explanation of the shape here.
Well, that's the tail rudder off an F-16
there you go.
fighter jet.
A tail rudder off the F-16.
Tail rudder, yeah.
Rudder, sorry. Okay, so it's sort of like almost from my limited understanding, I would say it looks almost partially like a sail with a flattened out top.
I never thought of it like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that a similar possible concept?
So.
Right? Rudder. The rudder for a boat, the sail of a sailing boat, almost like a pirate ship.
Yeah, I guess
right.
they're things that, the fins have sort of gone into history, but they'll probably come back and resurrect themselves.
And
like
that's where
thrusters and stingers.
That's where all these all these concepts come from. I mean,
Four
the swallowtail, like in surfboards, the swallowtail, the fishtail, they all come from either previous creations or natural things such as animals, right?
Yep.
Like the swallowtail, you watch when a bird, or like say, for example, a frigate bird with that giant extended swallowish tail, and how the transition between side to side, and they can turn more sharply and more like in a tighter radius.
Well, even like flyers and surfboards, which you see in the 1970s boards, were originally designed so you keep the same narrow tail shape, but you could make it wider behind your back foot.
Yeah.
Like, so then it would just chop in.
Yeah.
So that's where your flyer concept came from.
Yeah, right.
But so that's the little
And
thing
that's
I've been
fins.
playing. That's fins I've been playing with lately, yeah.
And then what else, man? The list is endless.
Yeah,
the list is endless. I mean, every time that I think, oh yeah, like, yeah, he's done this and this and this, and someone's like, oh, have you heard about this he made? And I'm like, man, the guy, endless. What were you working on the other day when you sent me photos?
Oh, the camper van.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. So I was very kindly given a 2000 model 1-tonner Holden.
Right.
And I'm going to make a camper van out of it. So I managed to scoop a old mortician's van.
What's a mortician?
A mortician, someone who buries people.
Oh, yeah.
A coroner, like a pre-coroner. The mortician's the guy that picks up the bodies and takes them to the morgue.
Yep, right.
So it was one of those vans. It's all made out of fiberglass and super thick insulation.
Yeah.
And that turned out to be a bit of a pain in the bum, but I only needed the skins from the outside. I wanted the sides for the shapes and the back window out of it. So I was given that too, so I cut sections out of that and laid up a whole heap of old fiberglass that I had from making skateboard decks.
Yeah.
And kind of making a hybrid thing, a bit like the Catamacar. I'm just using shapes and putting them together. So if it wasn't for all this rain, I'd almost have it on the back of the back of the truck. But do you ever watch Doctor Who?
I have. Yeah.
Remember his spaceship called the TARDIS?
I mean, not specifically, but I do remember his spaceship.
So his spaceship was a London telephone box,
the
or
telephone
a police box.
I do remember that. Yeah.
Which is really big on the inside and small on the outside.
Yep.
Called the TARDIS.
The TARDIS.
TARDIS. TARDIS.
TARDIS.
This is actually the opposite. It looks big on the outside, but it's small on the inside. So I'm going to call it the TURDIS.
The TURDIS.
Yes. So I've been working on the TURDIS.
Working on the TURDIS. Yeah. Almost like a little turtle shell as well. It'd be like a double meaning there. Yeah.
No, I was mean TURD.
Oh,
as in
turd.
Shit. TURDIS.
Oh, as in turd. Oh, the TURDIS. And one more just that I've got written down that I want to ask you about is the drag queen outfits. Do you like
okay. So there was one of the many girlfriends I had. One of them, her brother was a drag performer in Oxford Street.
Right.
And so I started making headdresses for the drag queens. So that's how that kind of started out.
Right.
And that was sort of it made me realise that even though I'm just fixing surfboards, I can make a whole lot of other things.
Yeah. Resin is
it's an amazing medium. You can do some great stuff with it.
Yeah.
The only thing is it takes people look at something and they don't realise how long it took or what went into it.
Or just curing and stuff as well, right?
How many mistakes you made before you could actually get that right, you know? That's the only frustrating part about it because it's not a sort of recognised medium.
Yeah, fully. And you're saying before, like you're cutting pieces out of this, the thing you were talking about before, the van. How are you using a grinder to cut that? How are you cutting that?
Just cut it with a grinder.
And like you're just getting covered in itch and just getting...
it's all part of the fun.
It is part of the fun, yeah. I was just wondering, how do you cut that all up?
Strange sense of fun.
Yeah, well, yeah, I guess so.
It's the sort of necessarily evil part of the process.
Yeah. Well, you were just saying before, like, when you're creating these things, right, how it's a funny medium because people don't realise how many fuck-ups, how many times and how hard it is to, like, create that thing, let that thing set and go hard and then realise it's wrong and then, like, you know, how many failures are involved in, like, probably producing a single product. How important would you say that failure is to your creative process?
Oh, failure is probably one of the most exciting parts because then it motivates you to work out how I'm going to get around this.
Yeah.
That, to me, building anything, the exciting part is not the doing because I can do it.
Yeah.
It's the working out how to do it and having something go wrong and go, oh, how's the best way of getting around this? And then look at, consider the what if factor. What if I do this? What if I do that?
Yep.
I think if I was ever given a skill, if I can call it a God-gifted skill, I'm not a religious man, but
Yep.
then my ability is that I can see the end at the beginning of most things that I do.
Right.
So I'll get a mental image picture of, and sometimes working with other people can be really frustrating. You get those nuts and bolts people that have it all planned and drawn and plotted and measured.
Mm-hmm.
And while they're doing that, I can already see whether it's going to be a success or a failure down, because I can visualize it, if it makes any sense.
Yeah.
And sometimes you've got to sort of sit there and try not to roll your eyes and write it out while they go into Errorsville.
Yeah. So would you say your relationship with failure is pretty positive, essentially?
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, failure is just a challenge.
Yeah.
If it's a job.
And just like it's obviously the learning, and you being as competent as you are as a craftsman has probably come from a number of failures, right?
Oh, totally. You know, I'll sometimes talk to people on sites, and stuff like that. And the first thing I'll say is, one of the first things I'll say is, all this advice is really good. Forget it all.
Start fucking up.
I have made more mistakes than any of you could possibly imagine.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm going to teach you based on my errors.
You need to fuck up to get good.
Yeah, I've made all the mistakes you could ever imagine and more.
Right.
So what I'm telling you is not what somebody else read on another site and they're just regurgitating it to pretend that they're smart.
Yeah. I'm telling you.
I was dumb.
From experience,
I was dumb, and this is what happened.
Right. Have you had any like crazy situations where you've mixed a couple of chemicals wrong, or you've put something and boom, big explosions, or things fall apart on you or something? Nothing's major
exploded.
failures?
No, usually with a resin, either it goes off or it doesn't go off.
Yeah. So I mean,
it'll either go off on you in the middle of something. Yeah. And then you got to try and manage that, or it doesn't go off at all, and then you're like, oh no.
What would you say your biggest fuck up was?
Usually with fiberglass, people call a fuck up is when something gets stuck in a mold.
Right.
Like you can have a boat the size of this room, and if it gets stuck up with the size of a 20-cent coin, you won't get it out.
Wow, really?
You'll need to, float it out with water or something to get it out. The force that it will take to crack it is unbelievable.
Wow.
Yeah, a couple of stick-ups, but nothing that I couldn't solve. No, I never really had any major ones. Ones that you thought were going, oh, Jesus, there's potential here for a real major, but never quite got that bad.
Well, I guess it's like you said, your relationship with failing and fucking up is so positive that probably every time you did fuck up, it wasn't considered I've failed here. It's
it's part of the learning process.
It's all right, cool. Well, now I'll try that again, and I know what not to do. Yeah, right.
And I think it's like that with most things in life,
For sure.
Failure is just part of the learning process.
For sure. Hey,
it's just how you deal with it.
Well, I was doing a bit of research.
Don't bash yourself up when you get things wrong.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. I need to learn from you a bit, Neil, because I don't have the best relationship with failure. So certain things I'll go into, and I'll be like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to pull that off, and I'll be a little bit too critical of myself, and be like, well, I'm not going to do it for that reason because I don't want to fuck up.
Don't get me wrong. I suffer from the same issue. Yeah, if it's an area that I'm not familiar with, particularly now that I'm older, I'm reluctant to go there.
Yeah, well, that makes sense.
Yeah.
You don't want to set yourself up for, especially when the odds are against you, how much do you want to fucking set yourself up for a blowout,
Yeah.
Makes sense. So you mentioned, right at the start of this, Mambo. Were you designing or drawing for Mambo, or were you creating?
That came from the Wayne surf shop in the early days, and there was a gentleman by the name of Brad Ladkin.
Right.
The Ladkins own the Gerringong surf shop. Natural Necessity.
I know a Ladkin, not well, but Forrest Ladkin might be one of his sons.
Brad maybe.
There could be one of his sons.
Yes,
possibly.
they've got sons.
There's a Ladkin I know, not super well, but I've met him a few times.
Yeah, so Brad was the Honey surfboard wax rep.
Right.
When there was only surf research, which came from America, and it was hard as a rock. It was like concrete surf research stuff, and then Brad was making honey surfboard wax, which smelt like honey. And it was a really big thing. And then a few other people started getting in the industry, and I think he basically sort of, I don't know, he ended up manufacturing nearly everybody else's waxes.
Right.
Strawberry Fields, Nat Young, everybody, he'd do everyone. And he was also involved with Phantom T-shirts.
Yep.
There was a company in Alexandria making, remember the Phantom? Ghost Who Walks?
No.
The cartoon character?
Like the Phantom that wore the black cloak, that Phantom?
Yeah, the purple.
Yeah, purple cloak. Yeah.
So the Phantom T-shirts were quite popular.
Right.
So he used to sell wax and Phantom T-shirts. Anyway, the people that printed the Phantom T-shirts must have had something to do with the guys from Mambo, Dare Jennings and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And they started printing their artwork. Anyway, so he came down with a bunch of Phantom T-shirts one day. He said, "You want to try something different?" I said, "What do you got?" Because we had a real tourist thing going, not just surfing, but a lot of tourists used to go to Coogee. And he showed me this picture of this. It was a singlet with a silly-looking guy with a bone through his nose, and it said 100% Mambo.
Oh, I've seen that one.
And I said, I don't know, Brad.
Don't know about that one.
Give me a pack and we'll see how they go.
Yeah.
So he gave me a pack of 10, and at the end of the weekend, they were gone. So, of course, I ordered some more, and it just went from there. So, as far as I know, we were actually the first Mambo retailers. Yeah, we were the first.
Wow.
And then years later, another girlfriend of mine was working somewhere in the city next to a bunch of guys who were making these sculptures out of polystyrene and all sorts of point-of-sale products.
Yeah.
Point-of-sale products used to be really big in the 80s and 90s.
What do you mean by point-of-sale products, sorry?
If you had a shoe store, it'd be a giant shoe.
Okay, yeah.
So something to draw your eye.
Yeah, right, gotcha.
It might be a fancy stand for sunglasses.
And you have a big giant thing of sunglasses.
Yeah, big thing of sunglasses, like in Kurt's shop, whoever's sunglasses there is, that's a point of sale
And
item.
you'll make a big pair that's obviously unrealistic of size, but to draw you in.
Yeah, or even just the cabinet, just have their logo on it. It's a point of sale item.
Right.
And they were making these sculptures out of foam, and I went round there one day. Kath said, "You should go around and have a look." And I went and had a look. And I said to him, "Look, these are unreal, but the glassing is horrible, and I can do way better than that, and probably for a lot less."
Yeah.
And that struck up our relationship. And I think for the next 2 years, pretty much all I did was Mambo stuff, and it went all over the world.
And you're talking, you were making resin sculptures.
They made them. They cut them out of polystyrene, shaped them, and then I would fiberglass them,
right?
And then they would paint them.
Right.
Well, some of the things I moulded completely in a conventional manner.
Yeah.
But a lot of the stuff was all hand shaped.
Wow.
And I always used to enjoy waiting for Peter or Hugh to come around, and they'd bring around their ute, and there'd be one of these sculptures on the back of it, and you never knew what you were getting.
Yeah.
And some days
fucking
you
here
just
we go.
look at it and you'd be in tears of laughter
as
you walked around it, because it was the most bizarre thing you'd ever seen. So it was really a good time.
Was
building those.
Was Captain Good Vibes? Was he something to do with Mambo, or was it just a similar kind of?
No, he was a
imagery?
character from the 70s. Yeah, Captain Good Vibes. He was in Tracks. I think Tracks magazine popularised Captain Good Vibes.
Yeah, because he kind of, I always familiarise Captain Good Vibes with like sort of the creative sort of imagery that Mambo had as well, like similar kind of colours and shapes, and it seemed similar. So I've always assumed that maybe Captain Good Vibes was a product of Mambo, but no.
Well, if you imagine doing a giant Captain Good Vibes, that's the sort of thing that we used to build.
Yeah. Oh, that's good, eh?
Yeah, they were very, very clever guys.
Yeah. And then
Hugh's around. He's a quite well-known artist now, and Peter's an artist in New Zealand.
Who's this, sorry?
The two guys that used to make the Mambo stuff.
Yeah, cool. So they're still doing art, right?
They're still doing art.
Cool.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
But that was kind of like, I think, a golden time for all of us, where there was so much stuff we had to make, and it was so funny and so much fun.
Yeah.
To build stuff like that.
Yeah, that's cool, eh?
Yeah, it was great.
Oh, that's epic. So what about your time in the fashion industry? I know we've spoken about it, but from what I've seen, like I've seen a bunch of old photos that have been resurfacing lately. A lot to do with the fashion industry. Were you ever a specific designer for a company creating a product, or did you just have friends that were models and you made those kind of prototypes? Or
yeah, I've always had sort of modelly girlfriends and things like that. But I worked with other people in the photographic industry,
right?
And used to work as a camera assistant, and ended up styling for some of the magazines, like the men's magazines and things like that.
Okay.
Before the internet, it was just magazines.
Yeah.
It was magazines, so that was a big
Tangible
industry.
copies,
Yeah.
Right.
So you'd be looking for locations and sourcing clothes and all that sort of stuff,
Yep.
which was kind of one of those things, again, I fell into.
Yeah.
And thought, I could actually do this.
Right.
And I couldn't do it every day because I just didn't have that much imagination.
Right, yeah.
But to be able to do it once every couple of weeks,
Was good fun.
that was great because you had so much you could think about and so much. Nothing was repetitive.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
So that was good. So yeah, did all right doing that. So I had all these little sideline
Little
jobs.
side hustles, yeah.
And the fiberglass clothes sort of tied in with that a little bit.
Yep.
I remember trying to get a stall at Mercedes Fashion Week, which was the big thing.
Yeah.
And they're really expensive. And I sent off some pictures of what I could do and I had a meeting with them and they said, oh, wow, we will give you an exhibit thing for free, I thought, this is great, we might be able to make a thing out of this.
Yeah.
Fiberglass bikinis or whatever, which sounds ridiculous, but when you see it, it's actually very, very malleable, to use your correct term.
Yeah.
Very soft. And they then asked, well, who manufactures the raw material? And I said, well, I do. So where can other designers buy it from? Well, they can buy it from me.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden the whole thing went cold.
Yeah, because
Because you're not helping the
there's no
industry.
mass market for the
No,
yeah.
you're not
no
helping
mass
the
production.
industry. Yeah, so they kind of went, you're out of here.
Well, that's the death of art, isn't it? Fucking shit like that.
Yeah, we can't make money out of it. No one else can make money out of it. You're out of here.
All right, piss off. Yeah. Well, anyway, just the honor of like getting like them seeing your product and being like, come and have a store here. Like, that's enough in itself. You don't want to give those scumbags your time and resources anyway if they're not going to appreciate the art form.
That's right. And you asked me before about Fergie, the Black Eyed Peas.
Yeah.
So this is we're on one of our trips up north.
So
2010.
Was it with the whole Black Eyed Peas you worked with, or just Fergie?
Well, we didn't get to work with anybody, but this is the story.
Right.
So I have a long reputation of playing terrible practical jokes on friends of mine.
Right.
Like some shockers.
Yeah.
And so anybody that I have has been a victim of my previous humour, I'm very wary if they send me anything.
Yeah,
especially when I was new to the internet. And other friends of mine were not. And I got this email, which I only just got a computer. I was only sort of working out how to use the damn thing. And I got this email and it said, Dear Mr. Cameron, blah, 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 blah. I'm an artist from blah, blah, blah. And in Nipplegate it just happened with, what was her name? Oh, gosh, Justin Bieber and Janet Jackson.
Yeah,
They had this thing at the football where she exposed her breast,
Oh, right.
Apparently, like, it got her heaps and heaps of press.
Right.
Well, evidently, Fergie decided that she needed to do something like that in order to... So, anyway, this lovely woman writes to me. It's a very, very articulate letter. I'm in Sydney, blah, blah, blah. And I'm thinking, well, I'm in Byron Bay, and I don't know who you are, and I'm not going back to Sydney because I'm doing this film thing.
Yeah.
And she wrote on the bottom of it, blah, 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 I hope to hear from you, Stacey Ferguson. Anyway, about a month after I got home, I sort of thought, I wonder about that. I'm looking at this email, and I thought, I wonder if this is bullshit from some friend of mine or whether it's real. And I thought, who the hell is Stacey Ferguson? So I look it up because it's Fergie from the Black Eyed Peas.
Wow.
So
Fuck, Stacey Ferguson, there you go.
yeah.
And did you
So
work with her?
she'd already left the country.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, So, but my suspicion that it was one of my friends playing a prank on me backfired badly.
Oh. All right.
Because I'd always wanted to do something for some big star, and then I could walk away from the whole thing and say, well, it started off as a thing in the garage, and it went to there.
And it went to the Black Eyed Peas.
And it went to whoever it was that was big, and they made it popular, and then I could just bury it.
But you thought one of your dickhead mates was stirring you up.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, the prankster got pranked.
Yeah,
Even though it wasn't a prank.
I did. I got totally worked.
Fuck. That's so good. Oh, man. All right. Well, like, you and I have obviously bumped into each other often at musical events.
Mm.
Do you have a preferred taste of music, a favourite kind of music? Do you listen to music when you're working to get you in the zone?
No, it's usually the power sound is roaring or something. Don't really listen to it.
Yeah.
I listen to most music in the car. But it depends on the mood, If it's just that mindless drivel morning show stuff that you get on the radio, then I'll just turn on classical.
Right, classical.
Listen to classical.
Yeah, I'm a fan of classical also.
Otherwise, pretty diverse, you know.
Yeah.
You know.
Do you have a favourite band?
Good house music or good rock and roll. Or
right.
Any genre even rap. If it's good rap, it's good, you know.
Yeah. Something that's good.
Something that's good. I know it sounds, a pretty basic way to describe it.
Well, not really,
If it's good, I'll listen to it.
I mean, that's an answer. I always have it when you go to someone, what do you listen to? Everything. And you're like, no. Everything is like, it is an answer, but like, no. And then I'll always back chat and be like, all right, do you like black metal? Do you like this? And they go, no. I'm like, so you don't like everything? Well, give me something. Like, is there, like, oh, I'm into, like, I like an answer. And just essentially something that's good, like as in something where there's certain music where you can tell it's just digitally sort of just spat out or like, whereas, yeah, something like, personally, I like something that's instrumental. I like a number of members to be in a band, people coming together and in unity and creating a sound together and it all coming out as one tight single kind of track. You know what I mean? That to me is like mind-boggling. But in saying that, even an individual composer that can make so many different sounds, and I like there to be a display of skill and intricacy when people play music. That's where I'm specific with it.
And even, I don't know, I think the important thing to remember is that whoever made that is as passionate about it as anything that you or I ever do.
Exactly, yeah.
So
if someone's passionate,
everything deserves a listen, even if you don't like it, I think.
For sure.
And, you think, well, it's not really my thing, but, in 3 or 4 years' time when they've matured with it a bit, it really might be your thing.
Totally, yeah.
So, because everyone has a course to take. No one's good at the beginning.
No. I'm really trying to diversify my like kind of intake of music, because I feel like so much so younger I was strictly grunge or punk, and I was so confined to just that genre, whereas now I'm like, I'm starting to diversify and there's so much more. Even like country, I was always never a fan of country, and now I'm like suddenly opening the world of country's opening, and like I'm growing fond of that as well. So no, it's an interesting one.
Yes, no, I've never been a sort of country person, although I did get some free tickets to the Milton Theatre about a year ago, and there was a girl called Fanny Lundstrom playing.
Wow, what an interesting name.
My gosh, she is unbelievable.
Fanny Lundstrom.
If you ever get a chance to see Fanny Lundstrom,
check her out. Even
if you don't like country music, she is an entertainer.
Really?
She's fantastic.
Wow, yeah. Okay, awesome. So... this is just like a basic question I always like to know, because it's such a topic at the moment, mental health. How do you, throughout your life, how do you now maintain just like a good mental state, or like you maintain your mental well-being?
I think because I guess I've never really had an issue with it, although I did almost have what used to be called a nervous breakdown.
Right.
Because I was working insane hours,
overwhelmed,
and drinking insane amounts of coffee, and body just basically just lost it,
shut down.
It just freaked out. Mentally, I was completely aware of what was going on, but it just wouldn't work.
Right.
So it was kind of like a metaphysical issue rather than a mental one. I don't know. It's something that I'm a little bit ashamed of, is that people who are mentally not quite right, like how would you describe them? People who have a distinct disability. Like I worked at Malala there for a little while, doing some work there, and the people who are really, really messed up, I can't be around them.
Right.
I find it, well, I find it really difficult to be around them, because it's like it sounds terrible. It's like going to the dog pound and wondering if that dog's going to bite you or not.
Right.
It's that sort of feeling, a total misunderstanding and a lack of appreciation for where they're at.
Yeah.
And I find it extremely difficult to be around.
Yeah, I mean,
whereas some people can just be drawn to them and want to help them and sit there. To me, it's like the great unknown. It kind of,
I guess, possibly.
Oh yeah, makes me really uncomfortable.
People who are maybe that could be. There could be something said for that. Like someone who feels like they're pretty mentally stable, mentally sound, finds it harder to associate with someone that's obviously on this completely warped version of...
Terrifies me to think that because I don't understand it,
Right.
and I can't be comfortable communicating with them without feeling like I'm
doing the wrong thing or something. Or...
No, what would be the word? Placating their condition.
Right.
Or pandering to the unknown, I guess it is. It's just, I don't understand it. I don't like things I don't understand. That's probably what it is.
That makes sense. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yep.
Whereas, see, I'm the opposite. Like, personally, me being diagnosed with like pretty severe ADHD, I can go with people, obviously, that are totally somewhat debilitated by their mental disorder. Whereas I can see at moments in a heightened state, it can really be quite crippling, you know. And so, like, for me, with people with mental health, I can relate quite a lot. And people with mental disabilities, like, who are completely, like I said, in that sort of form of their disability, like, I can relate because I can understand, like, wow, the mind is just so, it can take over, and just to see what it can do and how it can completely take over the body, you know, speech, vision, everything, like, everything can be controlled by the mind. So to me, it's easier for me to relate to that. But I know a lot of people that it's just I guess that it's uncommon, it's the unknown, and it can be scary, kind of.
I'm a bit ashamed that I can't deal with it, because I can deal with most things, but I'm not.
Everyone's
If there
got
was
their
anything
powers and
if anything I could change about myself, that would be one of those things. People who are obviously not wired correctly, I find them extremely difficult to be around.
Wow, interesting.
Just their presence.
Interesting.
Yeah, you know, I'm not trying to communicate. I don't understand it.
Yeah.
And I can't understand it.
Yeah, and you're not doing it out of from a point of discrimination.
No, there's
you're
nothing
doing
malicious about it. It's just that it's my own inadequacies and defense mechanism.
Well said. Yeah. Very good. No, I like that. Inadequacy, I like that. Very good. Yeah. All right. Well, we're kind of getting sort of near to the end here. Neal, I got a few more for you. Are you a spiritual person? Are you religious, or are you spiritual any way, any form?
I'll tell you a story.
Please.
A story that I don't normally tell people.
Oh,
I'll keep it brief.
No, it doesn't have to be brief.
I'll keep it brief.
You tell me.
When I was about 11 years old, now my parents had split up, and my mother was living at Maroubra Beach. My father was living at Wahroonga in the national park.
Right.
And or on the back of the national park. And I had a wonderful upbringing, because I could go surfing and hang around the beach, and then on the weekends I'd be out with my air rifles and blowing stuff up at Dad's place and wandering through the bush and having a wonderful time. There wasn't a television in the house at Dad's. We wouldn't have one. He used to listen to music, but there was no TV. And the house rule was that you couldn't leave the house until the sun broke the horizon.
Right.
And you had to be back when the street lights came on, or if the sun dipped.
Yeah.
Okay, that was it.
Yep.
Anyway, I remember one morning, and I think it was probably about this time of year, when you get those heavy dews, and we lived on, the house was on a valley sort of like this, and the house was here, and the valley went like that.
Yeah.
And I used to feel a bit ripped off, because if it was Maroubra, the sun comes up over the ocean. Now I've got to wait another 15 minutes till it gets over the top of the mountain.
Over the top of the ridge,
Yeah. So it's coming over the ridge, and all the dew's glistening, and there's a big round tree in our backyard, and it's all glistening. And we had this big window and these little hopper windows, and my face was pressed up against the glass, and it was cold, so it must have been probably autumn. And as the sun came up, the houses were all about 2 blocks apart from each other.
Right.
As the sun came up, there was this thing glistening in the backyard. And as it got brighter and brighter, a short version is, now I should go back and say we had no television.
Yeah.
There was I didn't read comic books.
Yeah.
Science fiction was, what's that?
So you had none of that
concept,
crazy shit
nothing was in my head
at
11 years old. And here's this, for what we will now call a flying saucer, sitting about 60 feet long, sitting 2 gardens up, 2 properties up. It's about 10 feet off the ground, floating at the back of this house. And as the sun's coming up, the colours are changing off it. And I can't remember exactly how long I watched it for, but it rolled slightly on its side and just went whap, and it was gone.
Wow.
So we used to get pieces of asbestos from the old houses and old porcelain plates and throw them at each other. So you knew how aerodynamics worked in a crude way. So the thing that always astounded me was, how can something fly like that when your logic would say it would fly like that?
Yeah, it's kind of pushing against G-force, right?
Yeah, it was completely all backwards. So that changed my way of thinking. I used to enjoy going to church, but from that day on I didn't want to go anymore.
Yeah.
And I realised that there's a lot more going on in the cosmos than we're led to believe. And that changed my pattern of thinking for the rest of my life.
All right. And from your interpretation, would you say that was some sort of spirit, some sort of, like, obviously, like, extraterrestrial being? What was your interpretation?
We're sharing the space with some other people, with other beings. There's no question we're sharing the space with other entities. Right. And I'm sure this will become apparent probably before the end of the decade. I think they'll start to. I mean, they're starting to talk about it now in America, in Congress and stuff like that. They're saying, well, but they've been hiding a lot of stuff.
Of course, yeah.
But I know that it's real. I've seen it.
Yeah.
But it definitely changed my way of thinking.
What was your
It's the most pivotal thing in my whole life was that point.
Wow.
Where I realised there's other shit going on.
Yeah.
Wow. You know?
Something. Yeah. Shit. Wow. I'm glad I asked that question.
Yeah. It's not so weird when you say it now, but if I said it 20 years ago, you think you're a nutter.
No, I'm glad I asked that. I'm glad, because that you weren't going to come up. Have you ever been married or in a long-term relationship or anything?
Oh, yeah, a few long-term relationships, yeah.
Yeah. And how old are you now, if you don't mind me asking? Don't have to answer.
68 coming up.
68, nearly 69. You know what that is?
Lickety split.
The best age.
Yeah.
That's the best age. I cannot wait. No, I'm 69. That's going to be my favourite age. What a great number it is.
It is. Yeah. It's probably a lot more action than 96.
Yeah, exactly. Yin and yang. And there's other things, but we don't have to get into that. But so you have had long-term relationships. Is there a reason? Have you chosen to be single now, or are you in a relationship now?
No. I'd like to be in a relationship now. I mean, I normally just don't. It's never been a thing that I've required.
Yeah. Okay.
I've had some really good ones. I had one horrendous one, but all the rest were fantastic.
Awesome.
And we're all good friends.
Cool.
Which I think is an important thing.
That is. Yeah.
An important thing. And the other thing I think is important, one of the most gratifying things, is that of all the different businesses that I've had and all the employees that I've had, they've all turned around and sort of said 20 years down the track, you're the best person I've ever worked for.
Right.
And I thought, that's cool.
That is cool.
You know, that's cool. And relationships are a bit like that too. If you can, sit down and have a cup of coffee and say, well, that was a bit of a mistake, but that was fun. Gee, that was really good.
That was awesome.
That was awesome,
Yeah.
I look at the bright side. That's a good thing.
Okay.
Not something that I need. I don't get lonely.
You don't get lonely? Okay, no. That was sort of my next question.
No, don't get lonely. I
entertain yourself.
Yeah, but I mean, you go down to the beach in the morning for a coffee and you look at a beautiful sunrise and think, this would be really nice to share with somebody.
Yeah.
Because I've shared it with people before.
And you know how it feels.
I know that feeling.
Yeah.
Would I like that again? Yes, I would.
Okay.
But is it necessary?
No.
If I never get it again, well, I've had it.
Yeah.
And I understand it, and it was wonderful.
Yeah.
I experienced it. A lot of people don't get to experience it,
Yeah.
So I consider myself lucky.
Yeah. And I mean, I guess that's the thing now, like, being comfortable to be alone and like having all these projects, like, you're not bored. Boredom.
No.
Boredom is like, an idle mind's the devil's playground.
Yes. That's true.
From what I can tell, you are not very often idling.
The worst thing, I cannot, one of the things that's kept me straight and on the narrow is the total fear of going to jail. God, I would go nuts.
Mm. Yeah, I can't imagine I'd be too stoked in jail. Even you, no. I don't know if that would be the place for me.
I've had friends that have been there, for whatever reason. It doesn't sound like fun.
I bet it doesn't.
No.
Do you have any regrets? I said that very nonchalantly, but that's quite a big question, isn't it?
It is. I don't think so. No, there's not too many things I'd change.
Okay, good.
No. Yeah, I don't know.
It's a good answer.
Nothing of any major consequence.
Yeah.
I'd look after my teeth better.
Really?
Yeah. I think that's something that you should all take home. Look after your teeth.
Look after your teeth. Mine are probably like red from the wine right now, are they?
Oh, I'm sure mine are.
Yes. Well, I've had braces twice and they're still a bit mangled, these top two anyway. We won't go into that.
Yeah.
But yes, I do my best to look after my teeth.
Yeah,
or my parents.
I've been punched and whacked a few times. But
Yeah, so are mine. They haven't fallen out yet, so hopefully they're pretty strong. All right, well, little question to just wrap it up. If you could tell your younger self one thing, what would it be?
look after your teeth.
Look after your teeth.
Consider the what if factor, which I think I've always done. And
elaborate a bit on the what if
Well,
factor.
I think
you said it before. I understood.
particularly with young men.
Yep.
Okay. Men and women, we're chemically really different.
Yeah.
Our hormones are different. We do different things. You don't see women doing crazy shit. You don't see women driving down the street in a hotted up car at 130 miles an hour.
Yeah.
That just doesn't happen unless they're
Dead nude with a long neck hanging out the mouth.
hormonally imbalanced.
Yeah.
So I think that as men, you've got this wonderful thing, this thing called testosterone. And then you've got adrenaline. And you've got boyish enthusiasm and peer pressure.
And booze.
You mix those three together without even adding anything else.
Oh, yeah.
And you've got the most volatile, exciting cocktail that you can do incredible things with if you consider the what if factor. Before you go and look, oh, that's a great idea, let's do that. That's the other thing talking.
Yeah.
And then what if that happens, or what if that happens?
Right.
So that you processed it and you're prepared for the fuck up either before it happens or when it happens.
Yeah.
And then you may not even decide to go ahead with the project.
We've almost got like a little... It's different, completely different, but I mean somewhat on a similar sort of parallel to that. We call it the 6 Ps. Prior planning prevents piss poor performance. You know that one?
No, I do.
Yeah.
That's
so
good.
it's like, like if you're about to do something that's completely radical, plan, prepare, get yourself ready for it. If you're still ready to do it, then go for it, and you shouldn't fuck up. If you do fuck up, well, that's just the way it was meant to go.
But something that I did think about was at the time that I grew up, like in the 70s and 80s, where there was no... You didn't distrust people. You go and hitchhike, and you hitchhike to Queensland or wherever it was and go surfing. No one thought you were going to meet an axe murderer or anything like that. And the world's changed a lot.
Of course.
And I sort of thought, do I feel sorry for people sort of growing up now? Well, yeah, because that trust of another human is not there anymore.
Right.
Which I think's been kind of is false, because I don't think humans are inherently bad.
Yeah.
Would I change the time that I lived in? No, because we had all the modern materials that people are still using now to build stuff. But the amazing thing that's going on now is like foil boarding and all that sort of stuff. My gosh, that's just science fiction.
Yeah.
And tow-in surfing and all those things that with us, you couldn't even draw a cartoon that would represent that. Your imagination wasn't that good.
Wow.
No one could imagine foil boarding. And you've got all this safety gear and jet skis and oh wow, what I wouldn't do to have the body to be able to do that.
Right, really.
And I don't think I'd even go surfing. I'd become a foil boarder.
Really?
Yep.
Interesting.
That looks amazing.
Have you ever thought about trying it, or you just don't know if the carcass
body
can
don't
hold
want
up?
to do it.
Yeah, it seems pretty
It
full
just
on
looks-
drop. I mean, not only are you falling from your upright height, but add an extra fucking 3 feet.
Yeah.
That's a big slap.
Yep. But yeah, if I had my time over again, my gosh, that's what I'd be doing now.
Yeah. And do you have any? I mean, I guess that was the same question as, do you have any advice for your younger self? But do you have any advice for younger people that are branching out, getting into getting into creating and developing and exploring? And you've tried and created and discovered all these things. Like, have you got any advice for someone that's looking to do that?
Yeah, whatever you're going to do it now before you need an insurance policy to do it. That's what I'd say.
Oh, Neal, mate. Been an absolute
Thank
pleasure.
you.
Absolute pleasure. Cheers.
Yes. Cheers, yes.
Cheers. Thank you for coming on, mate.
Thank you for having me. It's
I've been
great.
stoked. Been looking forward to this for a while. And look forward to see what else?
What comes next?
What else you can create?
Well, finish
in the next few
finish
years?
the Turtis and
Finish the Turtis, and then let's see what's
I'll
next.
see what comes next.
Yeah, the bus is going to be around for a while.
Yeah, I'm going to sell the bus, but that's the next project. Get the Turtis livable and then work on the bus.
Right. So the Turtis is the
intermediary.
Yeah,
It's the next step.
that's the substitute. You're going to move into the turd, and you're going to sell the bus.
Sell the bus and then maybe get something a bit bigger than the Turtis.
Right.
But it's kind of an intermediary thing, and it just fell upon me. It's one of the things where you put it out to the cosmos and people start kindly donating things to you, which was wonderful.
I mean, like they say, what is it? Another man's trash is another man's treasure. And I'm sure you can make treasure out of a whole lot of fucking trash.
I can.
I bet you can. I know you can.
Yeah.
Good man.
I just wish I had a place to store it all.
Well, yeah. Oh, well. Got to get one of those. I could get a storage unit or airplane hangar or something to store your stuff.
I'd be just terrible. Imagine if I had a block of land. It would be the scourge of the neighbours.
Oh, man. It'd be like one of those car yards and you go out west and there's just 1,000 of just busted up, rusty old buckets
I'd be on that show called Hoarders for sure.
The Hoarders, yeah. Oh, man. All right, Neilo. Well, thank you, mate. I appreciate it.
Thank you for the vino. It's been wonderful.
Yep. It's been nice chatting with you. I appreciate the
Thank
insight. I appreciate the stories and the knowledge. You're an inspiration.
Thank you.
You're a great inspiration. And, keep inspiring, keep creating.
Now we're off air, I can tell you all the other stuff.
Yeah, and now we can talk about all the naughty things.
All the other things.
Anyway, we're going to check out and we're going to talk about that. So thanks for tuning in. See you, everybody.
Bye, everyone.